at Wild Theatre. Thank you so much for spending your Sunday afternoon with us at Center 42 staging of Desert Blooms. My name is Yelling. I'm the General Manager of Center 42. I'm both very excited, very happy, and also a bit nervous because usually I'm backstage, not really on stage with a script. I don't have a script here, so bear with me. I'm so glad to be here today to welcome you all to be part of this year's Center 42's 10th anniversary celebrations. We are 10, and it's quite unbelievable because it doesn't feel too long ago when we first opened our doors on Waterloo Street, welcoming arts practitioners, theatre makers, partner organizations, audiences to a humble brew house. And I've been with the centre for 10 years. That was a baby. Our founding team, who are all present today, started out Center 42 with a very simple mission: to support the creation, documentation, and promotion of text-based works for the Singapore stage. And boy, have we been doing that in the past decade, in various ways: small, big, quiet, noisy, structured, and of course, very messy. One of these ways is the Vault, which is our flagship program, and in which Desert Blooms was incubated in 2019. The Vault as a program invites artists to engage with our theatre history and respond to it through their own means, through new contemporary lenses. So in the past 10 years, we have presented over 30 Vault programs of a diverse mix of forms, topics, and artistic motivations. The Vault Desert Blooms was first created by playwright Ng Yi-Sheng in 2019 and staged at the Center 42 Black Box that same year under the direction of Tan Chen. We've precisely chosen to bring this back as part of our celebrations, as we believe it really demonstrates how we can activate the archive meaningfully. This work, as you will see later, also features many of the playwrights and companies who worked tirelessly in the 80s and 90s to set the stage upon which all of us theatre practitioners stand on today. So in many ways, this work is very resonant to us at the centre, and also very relevant in our support towards Pride Month and our queer community. We would like to the long-standing support of our friends, colleagues, partner institutions, artists, audiences, and of course, donors. So a big thank you for being our advocates and our champions of C42. Thank you today for making a donation to be here. I hope you enjoy this fundraiser, and I really hope you enjoy the Vault Desert Blooms, the dawn of queer Singaporean theatre.
Those are words that have no meaning. What kind of scene are you talking about? There was at the time Stars under, what's his name, Jenkins, and the British one, Stage Club, and I believe Theatre Works.
You could say that the people in Theatre Works were misfits in Singapore. They were trying to start a company in 1985. They had come back from professional training, and I think there was a criticality towards conservatism, towards Singaporean values.
If you try to recall what it was like to be 18, 19, 20, just graduating.
How do you want to define queering?
Homosexuality was almost entirely a personal or a personal religious thing, as opposed to having family. And maybe your worries about what your straight friends might think.
Was the queering of Singapore about sexuality or a political moment?
The whole idea that there was even a bigger circle, like when the circle is 8 people, you could likely apply the word community to it, but you're not thinking of culture or anything.
I'm 39 years old.
Versatile.
Average body type.
16370.
My preferred pronouns are he, him.
I'm a writer and researcher. To be precise, I'm a queer writer and researcher.
And I'm looking for
Friends.
family,
history.
A sense of inheritance.
if you're part of the LGBT plus community, you can't pick up your heritage from your father and mother. You have to seek your own bloodline, map out your ancestors.
Discover your own tradition.
My tradition is performance, drama, theatrics. The living word, spoken and sung.
There are many queer roots to this tradition.
But I choose to begin with Bugis Street.
The STV would have described Bugis Street as outdoor dining in old world charm with local street life. I would have described it as a living stage where tourists and the neighborhood all became one stage. But the real stars of the street were the transvestites. Many of them were truly beautiful. Now, if I were a man, a stare might have been a signal, but being a woman, I could just open my eyes wide and look at their graceful movements, flickering eyelashes, and, I'm embarrassed to witness, their Adam's apple bobbing up and down. Bugis Street had momentum, a silent rhythm that everyone seemed to understand. Firstly, people seemed to sway, then they started to pound on tables. And seconds later, almost on cue, a young, well-built soldier jumped onto the dining table to dance. Egged on by his companions, he started a spontaneous striptease, ending atop the little toilet building, at which stage the beautiful ladies giggled and tottered aside. After showing off where the noonday sun could not reach, he jumped down, returned to his table, and instantly 6 jugs of beer were served on the house for his companions. That was the real Bugis Street, before the government swept it away with a clean and firm hand.
The date is 10th October 1985. Singaporeans gather at Bugis Street to bid it a final farewell.
This is the place that I love.
Echoed many of the Bugis Street veterans. Some of them talked about the good old times.
Ever since we moved out, we've been having a hard time.
Said one transsexual.
We used to earn about $300 a night. Now we're lucky to even get $50. Bugis Street is our only home.
The bulldozers have moved in. Aso says she'll eke out a living at Newton Circus. Anita the transvestite has a plane ticket to Zurich. What of the others?
In the wake of this loss, a 35-year-old civil servant begins to write a play. The story of a trans woman named Casey, alone on the final night of Bugis Street.
Consciously out to write Singapore's first gay play. Writing a play in the 80s wasn't widely done. Singapore theatre was almost non-existent, never mind if it's gay or straight. But I came along, and being gay myself, I looked around for stories to tell. The circle I mixed in, for want of a better word, we were a middle-class, English-educated community. When we thought about cruising, we wanted to go to Le Bistro at the old Tropicana building, Pebbles, Treetops Bar. We didn't go to Bugis Street for the simple reason that's the professional sex workers area. If you go there, you must be prepared to receive payment. Because if they find out you're giving it for free, the real sex workers can come and beat you up. But I did know of a friend who was a sex worker at Bugis Street. This guy was educated, he even had a foreign education. He grappled with, do I want a sex change or not? It's expensive, it's painful, and the fear, once you have a sex change, it's not reversible. And he's faced with a very real dilemma, going to his father's funeral.
The funeral? I told you I will come if I don't have to dress as a man. Sis, it says here on my new IC in the blank space for sex, capital F for female. Tell mother I'm no longer her only son. The surgeon changed that last week. Yes, I know that our funeral rites should be performed by a son, but I am no longer a son. Damn it, that's what I've been trying to tell you all this while. Are you stupid or just plain stubborn? I am not my father's son. I am his daughter. Like you, god damn it.
We talked about him. There was a bit of a debate. He should or he shouldn't. I was of the camp that he should. Just go back home one evening, do your duty.
You keep saying he. You keep misgendering your friend.
At that time, it was all very fluid. We would use a he or a she. We would call each other sister. And if you use the Chinese language, he or she doesn't exist. As a gay man at that time, you saw the options you had in life. You could get a job like your classmates, live a furtive life on the side. You could migrate overseas. Or you could say, if I want to be with a man, I'll be a woman. There was a period in my life where that was a tempting thought. Not because I felt trapped in a man's body, but because you could settle down with a man, marry him, share life.
Russell writes on Saturday afternoons after work at MINDEF. He uses an early word processing program, WordPerfect, to edit. He even buys his first home computer to complete the text. The work is finished in 1986. It is the first queer play ever written in Singapore. But for the next 5 years, it will remain unstaged. Let's rewind a little. In 1985, Times Books International publishes a best-selling book on national service. The book contains one of the first dictionaries of Singlish. Here's one entry. Aqua. A Hokkien term for both effeminate men and transgender women. Is it an abusive slur or is it representation?
I had written the book Army Days back in 85. And a year later, it was Xiao Chao, who was then at Theatre Works, who said,
Why don't you turn it into a play?
I said, no, it's one person's journey and monologue, so boring. Then a year later, he asked me again. I said, why don't I split the idea? 5 boys instead, let's do the CMIO thing.
The main characters are token representatives of Singapore's population. An upper-class Chinese boy, a working-class Chinese boy, a Malay boy, an Indian boy, and a Eurasian...
Oh, I'm Kenny Pereira. Ken also Ken. I don't know why I'm in this platoon. I'm supposed to join the music and drama company. I can sing, I can dance, and I can do a fabulous impersonation of Diana Ross and the Supremes.
Kenny Pereira is the dictionary entry for Aqua brought to life. He is a living caricature, yet he is also the play's most beloved and most recognizable character.
A lot of the people who watch the show say, I love Kenny. They just think he's adorable. He has so many of these standout moments. The lines are funnier, the comeback lines are sharper.
Kenny, in that role, he was in control. He wasn't the bully, the repressed. He enjoys his army life right through.
Not true. At the climax of the play, he rebels.
I just want to finish my NS in one piece. My whole family has moved to Australia and I wasn't allowed to go because I had to do my NS. Because my stupid father thought it would be good for me to stay back and serve NS. He actually insisted that I do it. For your own good, he said. A chance for you to grow up, to act like a real man, he said. Can you believe that? That your own father will actually make you stay back here for this? This whole thing is nothing but a waste of time as far as I'm concerned.
The same year, 2 more theatre companies are founded.
And a 22-year-old Harish Sharma, fresh out of NS, enters the world of political theatre.
I got a part in a third stage play in 1987. I had an invitation to audition for Old Singapore 2. Swanzer would give us these scenarios and we would improvise, and somehow or other the improvisations would be transcribed and we would go through a rehearsal process. I was as shocked as the next person when this whole article came out, and I was like, oh my god, I worked with them.
Later in 87, Harish enrolls at NUS. He meets another student named Alvin Tan, who has just founded his own theatre company, The Necessary Stage. In 88, the two of them entered the NUS short play competition with a play called Rigor Mortis.
Back then, I was an actor. I was acting lah, not an actor. But I was interested in writing, so I thought I'd give it a shot. And I sent it in, and it won a prize, which was quite a shocking thing, even though it was a merit prize and not a top prize. So that's when Alvin was like, maybe you want to write things for TNS.
Rigor Mortis tells the story of three housemates, Rani, Francis, and Alex. When Alex dies, Rani and Francis battle over who can claim him as their beloved.
You are nothing but his roommate. I was going to marry him.
I was nothing but his friend for life. What is a few months compared to 13 years of friendship? That's right, 13 years. He never told you, did he? I've known him since we were in secondary 1 together, so don't you come to me with your big tragic scene.
We were going to get married.
Grow up, Rani. He wasn't going to marry you. He told me. He just didn't have the guts to tell you.
And he told me he was going to marry me. I'm just jealous. Because you wanted it for yourself.
The play is expanded and staged in 1989. It is uncontroversial. It is uncut by censors, uncriticized by the public. Maybe because the play suppresses all sexuality, denies its own romance.
I love you, Alex. I really hope you know that. I was not in love with you, but I love you.
Maybe because there is no mention of AIDS.
We have to rewind one last time, back to 1985.
They used to call it an American disease, a homosexual disease, a hemophiliac's disease, a drug abuser's disease, a Haitian disease, and how safe it made us clean, normal, red-blooded, heterosexual Singaporeans feel, as we shuddered vicariously for the victims and cracked jokes about legal AIDS or first AIDS. When cases of women and children with AIDS began to show up abroad, we didn't feel so safe anymore. When cases started surfacing in Europe, Africa, Australia, India, Japan, and Thailand, a quiet chill set in. And suddenly, the jokes didn't seem so funny anymore. Acquired immune deficiency syndrome, the 1980s equivalent of the Black Death, began to feel uncomfortably close. Then, last Wednesday, we woke up to read 3 in Singapore found with AIDS-linked virus.
26 nurses at the Communicable Disease Centre sent in transfer applications when they heard the 3 virus carriers were to be hospitalized there. 2 doctors handed in resignation letters.
Some people have already proposed a sort of concentration camp where they can be kept.
1987.
Talented, applauded, celebrated, and dead. Goh Chu-san, 39, the brightest dance star Singapore has ever produced, died in his New York City home on a Saturday night of a viral infection apparently linked to the acquired immune deficiency syndrome.
It was quite horrible at the time. Everyone was scared and mad at everyone else. There were friends who refused to get tested and said if they found out we were sick, we were just going to disappear.
Freddie Mercury, Rock Hudson, Brett Davis in the Midnight Express. People were coming out and simultaneously announcing they were going to die.
In Singapore, there wasn't a public campaign to get tested, so none of us did.
A good friend died. I knew him because of ACJC and swimming and medicine. I visited him once a week, and the last time he was weak and didn't want to talk. I should have stayed. I could have been there for him at the end.
You grew up with the awareness. You didn't grow up at a time where you could be reckless and live with abandon.
It has been brought to our attention that transvestites and gays are freely allowed to patronize nightclubs, lounges, discotheques, and bars. You are advised to take immediate action to stop such people from patronizing this establishment. We are giving you 1 month's notice as from the date of this letter.
I came out during the height of the AIDS epidemic. It was a freedom surrounded by death. I could never forget the Times Magazine cover story of Rock Hudson and his HIV infection. This was the welcome to my new life. For me, from day one, it was safer sex and a fear of possibly being infected. Some of my friends turned HIV positive, and some of them died from this dreadful disease. It was a time of tremendous sadness, dread, and anger. Young men suddenly looked older with Kaposi sarcoma lesions on their faces, walking with canes. It was 1988, and I had gone back to Singapore to work with TheatreWorks, a theatre company there. As I studied their season, I saw that they had a slot for a play about AIDS, and fascinated, I said, "Who's writing this play?" And they said, "No one yet." And I said, "Oh, how much does it pay?" And they said $500, and I said, "I'm writing it."
Jackson on a jaunt was not a top priority for me. On a personal level, things were very, very, very busy at work at the CAD. Certainly, the original plot was not meant to be a rallying cry or anything like that. Che's piece was a much better piece of HIV literature.
Watching The Normal Heart at the Public Theatre was a major turning point in my life, where I realized that theatre could be socio-politically charged with a rich emotional life. So I decided to use what I learned from Kramer's work in my first play, As If He Hears.
Just 3 months ago, I told Dr. Chan I was having difficulty using my left hand. I assumed it was due to a muscle I pulled in my shoulder. I had to go for a brain scan, and after a few hours, the scan revealed a lesion on the right side of my brain. AIDS was attacking my brain directly. My God, I was beginning to lose my mind. Dressing and daily living became a one-handed exercise. Sometimes the right side of my body goes numb. I cannot move anything. One day, the chairman called me into his office and handed me a letter of dismissal. Just like that. He plainly said that my work was not up to par. Up to par. I couldn't fight him. Not even in court. I have to face the facts. I am dying.
When TheatreWorks submitted the play to the government for vetting, they read it and objected to the main character who was gay.
Homosexuality is portrayed as a natural and acceptable form of sexuality in the play. My ministry will not want to be joint presenter of the play in its present form. This is in line with the government's campaign against AIDS, and homosexuality is one of its main causes. Homosexuality in Singapore is objectionable.
His ministry would meet TheatreWorks officials and the two writers to decide what can be done. But Ms. Wong and Mr. Che said they would not alter their scripts to get the ministry's approval.
The same year, TheatreWorks plans to stage Russell Heng's Lest the Demons Get to Me at the Festival of the Arts.
The Ministry of Communications and Information and the Program Committee of the Arts Festival do not find the theme of the play suitable for staging at the festival.
I'm a bit puzzled by such a general statement that the theme is unacceptable. To me, the theme is domestic conflict and not the rights and wrongs of transvestism. That is not acceptable in Singapore?
So I said, fuck it, and came back to the States. But then a little while passed, and the artistic director of TheatreWorks, Ng Yi-Sheng, called me and said that he still wanted to produce As If He Hears.
It was just a minor character who was gay. It seemed to me that maybe there was no need for him to be there. Ultimately, he rewrote it.
I agreed and did the appropriate rewrites. But what I did really was a devious thing, like one of those writing exercises you find in those playwriting manuals, how not to write literally. Basically, I maintained the character's homosexuality, but I excised all the Larry Kramerisms, you know, pounding on the pulpit stuff. Instead, I wrote it in subtext.
Look at this picture of me. Look! That was only 2 years ago. I have aged over 50 years in just 2 years.
Have you considered makeup or not? I hear Estee Lauder can do wonders. So in a way, I made him here. He glided in on stage with a lisp, but he still had the same integrity and craft. Since he was Faye, the audience laughed at the character at first sight, but by the end of the play, they completely empathized with him.
I don't want to be a burden anymore.
You are not a burden to me.
It was okay for Kenny Pereira to be featured as a central character. All boys' schools had a girlish, effeminate boy. Every girls' school had a tomboy who was dykish. But they were, in a sense, non-threatening. It becomes threatening if they have AIDS. So that was the moment politics crept into Singapore theatre.
Come to my window, crawl inside, wait by the light of the moon. Come to my window, I'll be home soon. What are you looking at?
As Singapore approaches the end of the decade, something shifts in our culture. A silence has been broken. What was once taboo is no longer so taboo. The first queer Malay play is staged in December 1989. It is written and directed by 17-year-old student Nizam Rahman while in the middle of preparing for his O-levels.
Liwat focused on the love affair of two males, Iksan, an artist, and Ryan, a model. The play focused on the moral aspects of the relationship and had Ryan committing suicide after Iksan repented and ended the relationship. Some scenes, especially the symbolic bedroom scene, met with shrieks from the audience and applause from others.
As part of his research process, Nizam interviews gay men and lesbians.
Mereka gentar dan amat ragu-ragu untuk membuka hati dan pikiran. Dengan bantuan beberapa kawan, dan setelah diyakini, baru dapat saya selami perasaan mereka.
Pertanyaan yang sering dikemukakan ialah bagaimanakah mereka boleh jadi demikian? Dan jawapan yang sering diberikan ialah saya pun tak tahu. Saya memang begini dan Tuhan menjadikan saya begini.
Despite its tragic ending, this is the first recorded Singapore theatre production to explicitly depict a gay relationship. Today, the script is lost. The author passed away in 2015. Come 1990, there is a regime change.
What are you looking at?
The post-equality promises to be kinder, less authoritarian, more humane, and the wave of queer culture continues. Singaporean Maggie Lai becomes the first trans woman to dance in Taiwanese Neurochang striptease shows. Fashion model Bonnie Hicks discusses bisexuality in her best-selling memoir, Excuse Me, Are You a Model? Jimmy Ong and Tan Peng stage gay art exhibitions. The gender-bending play M Butterfly opens at the Singapore Arts Festival starring Ivan Heng. Queer playwrights gathers at Theatre Works, led by 26-year-old director Ng Yi-Sheng.
I started Writers Lab in 1990. In the first 2 or 3 years, it had such phenomenally exciting plays, written by people who were not members of theatre companies. They were really writers. None of them were commissioned plays. They were all burning plays that these individuals needed to write.
Even the lab reports could be dangerous spaces.
Someone said that during the performance, a middle-aged man came in, sat through a third of it, and left. She was afraid he could be ISD. I was prepared not to be afraid, but could not help feel a knot of fear for a while during the interval.
Tan Tan Hao is 31 when he writes a political satire called The Lady of Soul and Her Ultimate S Machine. It features a secret gay relationship between a senior civil servant and a minister of state.
No, not here. Utmost care and discretion, remember?
Yes. And you too, don't start trying to change society. Not after how far we've come.
Change the play according to Peng Sen's request so that Paul becomes Pauline instead. Theatreworks will be submitting the play next week to the censors and we will see what happens.
Avidia Yu is 30 when she writes a monologue titled Marrying. It is given a stage reading at the Writers' Lab presentation in June 1991. It is Singapore's first lesbian play.
I wasn't aware it was the first, honestly.
In September 1991, Action Theatre stages Imagine, also written by Avidia.
The play is about a dead writer, Jan Si-Fu, and her abortive relationships with her Caucasian husband, her lesbian lover, and her best friend's husband. At one point, Jan Si, in a reunion with Jerry, confesses she has missed her, especially when she whiffs a perfume on someone else.
Why didn't you just buy yourself a bottle of the perfume?
It's not the perfume. It's the smell of it on a warm body.
Those are the only surviving fragments of these two landmark plays. I've tried asking Avidia for further details.
Sorry, I really don't remember.
Imagine is staged as a part of Fortnight Theatre, a mini festival of 17 local plays. Among them is Akka, a short play about a transgender sex worker. It is written and directed by G. Selvanathan, aged 23, just out of national service. It is Singapore's first queer Tamil play.
I was walking in Serangoon Road near Desker Road area and someone asked me why you wouldn't want to do a drama about people like us. So they prompted me to do one. But at the time I was too young to realize how I could represent them in a social drama. So after talking to some of them, there was so much pain, so much scope, and various points of view on how the community sees and views transgenders and gays in our conversation.
கூட பிறந்தவர்களே என்னை ஒதுக்கிய பிறகு வேறு எதற்காக நான் வாழ வேண்டும்? மேலும் அப்ப நான் அனுபவித்த துன்பங்கள், நிம்மதி இல்லாமை, குழப்பம் அனைத்தும் சேர்த்து என் வாழ்க்கையை மாற்றியது. என் நண்பர்கள் கூறிய அறிவுரைப்படி நான் எடுத்த முடிவு அப்போது சரி என்றுதான் பட்டது. என் பெயரை மாற்றினேன், காமினியானேன், உழைத்தேன், ஆபரேஷன் செய்து கொண்டேன், கண்ணெறிய சம்பாதித்தேன். என்னை கேவலமாக நினைத்த என் சகோதரர்கள் என்னிடம் கடன் வாங்கும் நிலையை அடைந்தேன். இப்போது எல்லோ கார்டு வைத்துக்கொண்டு என் உலகில் ராணியாக வாழ்கிறேன். ஆனால் என்னை போல் யாரும் ஆகக்கூடாது. அப்படி ஆனாலும் இந்த நகரத்துக்கு, என் நிலைக்கு மாறவும் கூடாது. என்னை போல் கைவிடப்படும் பலர் என்னுடன் இருக்கிறார்கள். அவர்கள் ஒவ்வொருவரும் வாழ்க்கையில் எவ்வளவு கஷ்டப்பட்டு இருக்கிறார்கள் தெரியுமா? நாங்கள் விரும்பிதான் இந்த வாழ்க்கைக்கு வந்தோம் என்று பலர் நினைக்கிறார்கள். நாங்கள் இந்த வாழ்வை தேடி வந்ததற்கு காரணமே அந்த வாழாய் போன சமுதாய மக்கள் தான். எங்களை எப்போது அவர்களும் ஒருவராய் ஏற்றுக்கொண்டு சமுதாயத்தில் எங்களையும் மதிக்கிறார்களோ அப்போதுதான் எங்களுக்கு எல்லா பாவ விமோச்சனம். கேவலம் அனைவரும் சமம் என்று கூறப்படுகிற கோவிலில் கூட எங்களை ஒதுக்கித்தான் பார்க்கிறார்கள். சமுதாயம், சமுதாயம். I don't give a damn about your samudayam.
It was shocking to the existing theatre audience, but because we packaged it with 3 other plays, the audience was sort of psyched. The gay community was very supportive.
Was the trans community there?
I had to interview a lot of those people. They brought their friends and they watched. But beyond that, there was a group of mature audience. My dance teacher and her husband came and he told me, "Hey, you made me cry. I never cried for any other performance. You made me cry." They broadcast the other 3 plays on TV. The producers spoke to us and said that we can only do these 3 because of the content of Akka. Because it's a national channel, you have to be careful with the audience that was watching.
Why didn't you write more queer plays?
There was a saga, but the protagonist was supposed to do the role backed out because his mother threatened him to go and jump down and commit suicide. That put me on a very precarious ground. Not knowing if this kind of thing will affect the actors generally.
So that's why you acted in your own play.
I didn't look good though, even with the makeup. And I was told in the army camp, they print out my photo and they masturbated to me. So that is how sick people are. But I felt good though.
Same year, Russell Heng's Lest the Demons Get to Me is finally performed at Writers Lab.
In the audience is a 23-year-old army boy named Otto Fong.
At that time, I was thinking, how come all the plays about gay people are actually about transgenders? I can't really identify with them.
Since 91, he has been a part of a Chinese playwriting workshop called
剧本创作室. Ko Bao-kun wanted to encourage new young playwrights, so he invited Shanghai's Yu Yun, who was chief editor for a while. I think she also wrote screenplays. I was languishing in the army, cruising, getting to know the gay scene in Singapore. And my mother saw the call for the workshop in the newspaper. I kind of balked at it because it was in Mandarin and my Mandarin sucked. I'd always wanted to be a cartoonist. Morgan Chua was very famous, but given the political persecution he was put under, it was highly discouraging for a young kid to say, I want to be a cartoonist. But I still needed some artistic expression. So I joined a playwriting workshop. We had a class at the substation every week in the evening. I was able to make it after we booked out of the army. It was on the 2nd floor, the small dance studio. Yu Yun would give us lectures about playwriting. Han Lao Da was there. Ko Bao-kun was there a few times.
Otto writes
一族
a one-act play about gay men. It is Singapore's first queer Chinese language play.
When I told Yu Yun Lao Shi about my intention, she didn't blink. She just told me, write the play. But then again, why would she blink? She's from Shanghai. She worked in the arts and movie industry, which would have been full of gay people. She was very encouraging. Rather than, do you think this kind of topic shouldn't be broached? It was more,
What would happen if the character did this? What is the likely scenario if the play goes that direction?
it was all focused on the script rather than possible social repercussions. But I wrote it without any belief it would be staged.
Drama Box picks up the script. They workshop the script. They submit it to the Public Entertainment and Licensing Unit. Predictably, the censors had issues.
Their concern was there were 2 men in bed. I was really pushing my luck. 2 men naked in bed. But Ko Bao-kun said,
But the script didn't say what they were doing. For all we know, they were playing chess.
Ko Bao-kun, he's such a veteran at being interrogated. There's no mention of sex, so they decided to let it through. But just to be cautious, they put an RA rating.
The work is staged in November 1992. It is a double bill with Lee Chi-Pin's
生命他乡
an experimental play about AIDS. The 2 are the first Chinese language plays given an RA rating in Singapore. 2 weeks later, Ko Bao-kun directs,
后代
written by Lin Sun Lan, another workshop participant of
剧本创作室
It is the story of 3 women in a traditional Chinese family, how their lives are changed when their brother, the last male descendant of the clan, comes out as gay and HIV positive.
阿海讲，他们为了让衰老走进他们的生活，走了要保持青春美丽。
青春美丽，并发题来看谁还会美丽。
后代写儿子是同性恋，男根传不下去是绝代，象征一个时代、一个移民生活的终结。许多同性恋者的博爱、宽宏，使他作为一个个体而言，不是绝代，而是扩大了。他们使您进入了比血缘、种族、国家的延续更大的生命空间。
Finally, in December, Toy Factory Theatre stages Posterton. It is written and directed by 21-year-old Go Boon-tek. It is a reimagining of the Chinese cross-dressing classic of The Butterfly Lovers, staged at Kallang Theatre.
We rehearsed that play for 1 whole year, and I was in NS also. I injured myself, and I was on crutches and rehearsing.
我不要他做我弟弟，我要他是我爱人。
In the story, the hero dies because he realizes she's a woman. So we elaborated that he did that because he didn't want her to be a woman.
Thus, the Singapore Chinese theatre scene stages its first 4 gay and HIV-themed plays, all within the span of 2 months.
Another little explosion of queer culture in Singapore. Peculiar Chris, Singapore's first gay English language novel, is published. Our first LGBT organization, People Like Us, gathers for private meetings at the substation. Dr. K.K. Seat opens the NUS Theatre Studies Department, and drag comedian Kumar begins performing at the Boom Boom Room. With all this action, there is, of course, an unequal and opposite reaction.
Be sensitive to the moral values and sentiments of the majority of Singaporeans. Ours is still a traditional society which values what is private and personal and is not comfortable with what it considers explicit depictions of sexuality and deviant values. By all means, let our cultural desert bloom, but please, let the blossoms be beautiful and wholesome and not be prickly pears or weeds.
He's responding to Theatre Carnival on the Hill, a festival on Fort Canning with multiple plays by Theatre Works.
Ovidia was probably the queerest playwright. Like 3 Fat Virgins, that's quite queer. Her characters were not necessarily gay characters, but they were camp.
I saw The Sound of Music 5 times!
I saw The Sound of Music 7 times!
I saw The Sound of Music 12 times! And I wanted to become a nun!
I wanted to become a singer!
I fell in love with Julie Andrews! I am a fat, fair, virgin dyke who is in love with a happily married and pregnant woman who is a high flyer at the NPB. She doesn't know that I'm in love with her. I'm afraid that if I leave the NPB, there will be no one here to appreciate her or feel sorry for her when she is tired. And every woman deserves to be appreciated by someone, somewhere, even if they don't realize it. If you don't have someone who appreciates you, the next best thing is to appreciate someone. When you are totally in love with someone just for a moment, you are no longer a fat virgin. You are a woman in love.
I didn't create the lesbian character in 3 Fat Virgins to make a statement. A good friend, who is a fat, fair Asian gold medal judo dyke, who never watched plays, said she would come and see a play if I wrote her in. So I did.
4 of the plays in the Theatre Carnival on the Hill have been censored. Desmond Sim's Blood and Snow apparently had 14 pages cut. Teresa's bra sizes is all the references to breasts cut. Robin Loon's absence makes the heart grow fonder, its few fucks cut. It does not look good for soul. About a 20th of the play has been blue penciled, very inconsistent cuts, enough to maul the script. Very depressed.
Tana writes a letter of appeal to PELU, the Public Entertainment and Licensing Unit.
Why am I submitting a script that does not take into account PELU's objections? The main reason is that the Censorship Review Committee has come up with recommendations for new guidelines. I would also like to request that the script be passed with a restricted rating that bars those below 18 years old from seeing the production.
Also in 92, a 24-year-old Robin Loon stages the famous 5 Go on an Adventure, a violent, queer, campy comedy about dysfunctional youth.
I'm Tina Turner! I have to dance! I'm expected to dance! I will dance!
Then I'm Madonna! My life is an entire spectrum of irrelevant reality. Also, I forgot to bring my cornetto bra!
We're the Charlie's Angels!
We work undercover. Our real identities cannot be revealed.
We have to act the bimbo because that's the only way to work. Bimbos get away with a murder.
Also in 92, Harish Sharma stages Grassroots, Please Don't Step on Them, a surreal drama that merges Marxist conspiracy and LGBT oppression into a tale of queer revolution.
A revolution? You mean like a war? Yes. Scream! We'll be surrounded by men in uniform.
Better to have them out of uniform. Scream!
We'll say anime, and K-I-K.
This may be the first Singaporean production to feature Pig Latin, a coded language used between gay men in the 80s.
It's one of those plays that I really don't remember. A really bad review by Hannah Pandian. I also acted in it, and that was a mistake.
Also in 92, Che Yu is employed as resident playwright for Glen Gui's Mulan Theatre Company in London.
I spent my entire time in London partying. When my money was running out, I knew it was time to write a play for Glenn. However, nothing came to me. Glenn then asked about adapting my film script Porcelain to the stage. I asked if he had the budget for multiple scene changes. He said no. So sarcastically, I asked if he had the budget for 5 chairs.
Porcelain is a play for 5 actors about anti-Asian bigotry, toilet sex, and violence in the gay community.
I transposed my American and British experiences of racism, immigration, self-hatred, and isolation to Porcelain. There's still many moments of the play I can't bear to watch.
Queer,
Chink, cocksucker,
slit eyes.
go back to China, bang!
But the biggest queer play of the year is Private Parts. This is the story of Warren, a straight cisgender TV celebrity who falls for Mirabella, a trans woman awaiting surgery. He learns how easy it is to fall from grace, from the mainstream into queerness. Also featured in the play is Edward, the first trans man in Singapore theatre.
I didn't want to come on this show. I felt that I didn't want to make my private life public for everyone to see. Until something happened. The Enlistment Act. The Ministry of Defence wants me to sign up for national service because, according to my IC, I am a man. But the Registry of Marriages tells me I cannot marry my fiancé because, according to my birth certificate, I am still a woman. We are witnessing this so-called liberalization in Singapore. It started with the easing of censorship, the more open style of government, the let's hear what everybody has to say philosophy. Great! But deep down, people don't change.
These days, the casting appears problematic. Cisgender women play Edward, cisgender men play Mirabella, Lavinia, and all the other trans women.
The role is about a man who becomes a woman. If it's a cis woman, that's also problematic. It's a denial of the extremity of feelings that a man went through to become a woman. So it cannot be played by a cis woman in my view. But to say that, I'd probably be sued by an actress who says, I can play any part. That's what Margaret Chan would say.
King Sen called me up again.
If you have a project in progress, you can come in and work it through.
I thought I had some piece that I wanted to work on, so I said, okay. But it was going nowhere. I was being a flake, slacking off. And of course, King Sen calls me and says,
What's happening to you?
And in the course of that conversation, it came to me that there was something else I'd been wanting to write for a long time. And King Sen does the whole emotional manipulation thing.
If you want to write it, write it.
Mergers got written in 2 weekends. That first week we had King, Yubing, I think Ming Shu, I forget who Leslie was. And we were in tears at the end of it.
You're very attractive.
I also happen to be married.
I'm sorry. It was a stupid assumption on my part.
What?
That it was a marriage of convenience.
You'll have to ask John about that. I imagine there are days where he finds me extremely inconvenient.
People were really not out then. It wasn't a bunch of gay fans coming up to you saying, me and my partner enjoyed it so much. But every night, there would be a significant portion, maybe 20-30% of the audience, would be 2 women together. Friends or partners, it's actually not possible to tell. And I do remember many evenings when Leslie leaned in to kiss Ellen, and the lights went down before the kiss happened. There was a little collective intake of breath by the audience. It was that kind of audience.
Mergers and Accusations is the story of Ellen Toh, a lesbian lawyer who enters an open relationship with her straight best friend. Their relationship fails when she falls in love with an English woman named Leslie. Ellen has explained that it's about being true to yourself.
One must salute Eleanor Wong for addressing an issue which has been locked up long enough. Thanks for burning down part of the closet door, Eleanor.
But from a 2019 perspective, you could also say it's about a pansexual, polyamorous relationship reduced to homosexual monogamy.
There was a relationship that was very queer between the straight man and the gay woman. That was a kind of queer magical relationship.
Also in 93, Harashama stages Land, featuring the ghost of a gay soldier.
It's true that I jumped onto the recruit to throw the grenade away, but the recruit is also my lover.
Huh? 2 men in love? Oh, 1980 is very different from 1940.
Also in 93, Tan Tan Hao's Lady of Soul is finally staged. After a letter of appeal, the Public Entertainment and Licensing Unit passes it with no cuts. The play ends with the vision of a secret haven for the arts.
Yes, we are building an arts house inside my tart house.
Arts and tarts. A place with no censorship, where everything goes and anything goes. There'll be classical art and avant-garde art. We'll experiment and be bold. We'll take the bad with the good, the dross and the refined, the sex with all the rest. On the hotbed of lust, art will grow and flourish. Don't you think it's brilliant?
Also in 93, Kumar begins hosting the Rara Show, Singapore's first English language TV comedy series. But out in the streets, queer life is very different.
The night for Keenan and his friends started out like any other Sunday night at Rascals. People were dancing, drinking, enjoying themselves. Suddenly, the music stopped and the lights went up. Out of the corner of his eye, Keenan saw a senior partner at his law firm try to hide himself in the crowd.
Shut up! Police raid!
A plainclothes police officer in a striped polo t-shirt warned everyone to keep quiet, or he threatened.
I'll knock your heads.
Keenan was carrying his identity card, so he was allowed to leave the club. But his flatmate did not have identification and was detained. Keenan rushed home to fetch his flatmate's card and hurried to the Beach Road police station. There, he found his flatmate huddled with other detainees taken from rascals, all made to squat outside the station. The recent law graduate decided to write a letter to the police.
It is particularly disturbing to find Singapore law enforcement officers behaving rudely towards and verbally threatening citizens who have not committed any offences.
He finally managed to collect 21 signatories and submitted the letter to the police and the Ministry of Home Affairs.
If you're talking about gay men being attacked very openly, very visibly, it happened. If you're talking about gay men fighting back, it happened. So for all intents and purposes, it was our Stonewall.
12 men were arrested for alleged sexual offences in the space of a week at a reclaimed piece of land at Tanjong Rhu. Plainclothes policemen from the Geylang Police Division headquarters posed as decoys.
21-year-old artist Joseph Ng reacts to this persecution through performance art.
I hate all this fucking gay bashing around the world. When will you fuckers leave us alone? I love to cruise. Just love to cruise.
Ng walks rhythmically around the performance space in overlapping circular patterns while pretending to play the violin. He hands the violin to members of the audience and asks them to hit him with it.
He performs again at the Artists' General Assembly, just past midnight on New Year's Day.
He places the newspaper cutting 12 men nabbed in anti-gay operation at Tanjong Rhu from the Straits Times on each tile. He then carefully places a block of tofu on each tile, along with a small plastic bag of red poster paint. After striking all the tofu blocks, Ng says,
I've heard that clipping hair is a form of silent protest.
He carries out an action not visible to the audience and returns to the performance space, placing a small amount of cut pubic hair on the center tile. 2 days after Ng's performance, the SPH tabloid The New Paper carried articles sensationalizing a short portion of each performance. 1 day later, the National Arts Council released a statement to the press.
NAC finds the acts vulgar and completely distasteful, which deserve public condemnation. By no stretch of the imagination can such acts be construed or condoned as art.
In the witch hunt that follows, another form of performance comes under scrutiny. Foreign theatre.
Is the necessary stage, which went professional only in 1992, using theatre for a political end?
Performance art and foreign theatre are subsequently banned from receiving state funding. The ban will not be lifted for the next 10 years.
So when we promoted the arts, we said, look, the old OB markers have to be widened. And then this incident took place and I said, this is a very good spot to plant the new OB marker. When the boundaries are clear, those who act within the boundaries are free.
What justifies the stern action is that the two appear to be using the umbrella of art to shield a political statement aimed at exerting pressure on the authorities on the gay issue. What will performance artists like them do next when they have run out of bodily functions to demonstrate and parts of the bodies to defile?
Ironically, the very same year, Koh Bak Sung collaborates on a Broadway-style production called
Boogie Street the Musical!
It was in many ways like a straight person's perspective on this phenomenon of Singapore street culture bulldozed away by urban development.
We can see beyond the chains.
The bodies that we really want to be ourselves without scorn.
To be free to have our own fun.
What a wonderful time it will be.
Once everything we want is done.
Other playwrights have no time for nostalgia. Otto Fong smashes taboos in his farcical comedy, We Are Family.
It was a complete rip-off of Joe Orton's What the Butler Saw. It was about this sociopathic gay man trying to start a cockamamie business scheme for his lover. It starts when his poor mother walks past the Raffles statue. A part of it drops off in her mouth, and she dies.
This play doesn't just celebrate the sexual freedom of gay men, it mocks the legal system that suppresses them.
Lie to me one more time, and I will throw you in jail! Oh, yes! You will be forced to bathe with tough young hoods from all walks of life! from a life of crime!
I'm shivering with anticipation. I mean fear.
It is complete gender and sexual anarchy. At one point, Kevin persuades his gay lover Mikey to seduce his sister.
What school do you graduate from?
The convent of the morally outraged.
No! I came from there!
But it is an all-girls school.
My parents wanted a girl, so ever since primary school they dressed me up as one and insisted that I attend an all-girls school.
Was it traumatic?
It was okay, until lesbianism became a fad and all the girls started to experiment with each other's bodies. I was rather popular. The girls thought I was quite butch, so I got it on with many. But when several of the girls I slept with got pregnant, I flew into a panic.
That was when you found out that you're a man?
No! I thought I was pregnant too! Because I wasn't menstruating! The realization didn't come until I represented Singapore in the SEA Games and failed the sex test.
You must have been devastated!
I cried bitterly over posters of Martina Navratilova. But overnight, I turned over a new leaf. I donated all my old wardrobe to the Salvation Army and went down to the army surplus stores on Beach Road.
How courageous!
I tried to forget my past. But sometimes I'm not always successful.
What do you mean?
Once in a while, I go back to my old ways secretly.
You mean sleeping with lesbians?
No! I put on women's clothes. But even in such times, I was enterprising. I'll go down to old boogies and work as a transvestite prostitute. Ah, sunshine!
No, you have an entrepreneur's mind!
You look good in that nightgown.
Oh, I almost look naked under the moonlight. If I were at home, people would think that I'm a woman without the benefit of Confucianism.
Gown stirs my memories and triggers my loins.
I'd ask you to look away, but you are our guest, and it would be rude of me too.
Might I make a bold request?
What is it?
You ever hesitate?
Do try!
No! It's too much to ask! May I try on your gown?
Mikey might be the only character in Singapore theatre to identify with every single letter of LGBT.
It's basically the queer equivalent of winning an EGOT.
Meanwhile, the Rara show is pulled from the air for obscenity. Producers begin developing a new sitcom, Under One Roof. When it premieres, guest stars include the gay actor Lee Wing-Kee and the transgender comedian Abigail Che.
The core cast features Norlina Salim, who performs in Long Lashes at Night with Kumar at the Boom Boom Room, under the guidance of its new managing director, Paddy Chu.
And far off in LA, Che-U stages A Language of Their Own. It is a landmark work about the lives of gay Asian American men, surviving prejudice, surviving heartbreak, surviving AIDS.
I have this sudden urge to kiss him.
He has no visible signs of being HIV positive.
Why is he looking at me that way?
He's a little thinner, but still is handsome.
I wish Robert wasn't as good looking. It would be easier for me to know that he's been sleeping with a troll.
We were looking at each other again.
Across the room. Like the first time we met.
The work travels to New York in 1995.
Che invites Ong Keng Sen to direct.
Even at the time, it was fairly unusual in New York to have all characters be gay and sensitively dealt with. It was new for audiences and new for critics. Here comes an original voice, a very emotive voice, coming from a minority race, no less.
I remember standing outside the public theatre on opening night, and I said, look, 2 Singaporean Anglo-Chinese schoolboys have made it to New York City. You know, I was an ACS boy. In fact, I began acting at the ACS Drama Club.
That's me in Sec 1 with my friend Eugene Tan. These days he calls himself Becca the Bus. We were in a parody of Macbeth. Both of us were witches.
Then, in 1994, our new principal, Dr. Ong Teck Chin, banned us from cross-dressing on stage. He resigned 16 years later when a male teacher accused him of sexual harassment.
Also in 94, it was also the year that I got to go to the creative arts program. This was a writing camp held at NUS with workshops under Stella Khan, Eleanor Wong, and Harish Sharma. It was fucking amazing. It was also the first time that I got to know that there was an actual arts community in Singapore. And it was also the first time I met a 17-year-old RJC student named Alfian Saad.
I wasn't writing gay plays yet, but I was writing gay poems. The Cap newsletter actually printed one, without the final coming out stanza. It began with long sobs, the violin throbs, my heart it does as well. I never said they were good poems. They were bad, sad, tragic love poems. I was a teenager. I was desperately lonely. I couldn't believe anyone I loved would ever love me back. Alfian, on the other hand, was already speaking truth to power.
He was working on a script called Fighting, an ensemble piece about 9 children in a playground confronting Singaporean oppressions. Sexism, racism, classism, homophobia. It won Best Play at RJC Drama Fest and was restaged by the Necessary Stage at the end of the year. The first of his works to get a professional staging.
I felt like doing this in a school play was already making a kind of statement. I remember I had this speech, which I felt was a kind of plea of understanding.
I don't understand why they do this to me. I learned they've got names for me in every language. Sisi, Aqua, Bapo, Pondan, I don't even know if it's Malay or Tamil. That day I had PE and I forgot to bring my PE t-shirt. I had to do PE bare body. And when I played football bare body with the guys, I played like this. And they all laughed at me. They don't understand that it's very cold. It's very cold.
I wasn't good at sports. That was one of the first things that would mark you out immediately. And I would be so terrified when people played soccer. And I was walking in the periphery of the field and the ball would stray into my path. It would become such a terrifying test, this trial of masculinity.
We were just children back then. We didn't know we were living in this extraordinary period of queer Singaporean writing. Do you know from 92 to 95, I've counted 16 queer plays, 7 queer novels, and 2 queer poetry collections? We went from silence to emergence to abundance on this island, just like that. And then, a break. I can't find any queer play staged in 1996. There were others in the late 90s, but LGBT subjects had become a little rarer, less mainstream in Singapore theatre.
Why did the wave collapse?
Can we blame the government?
My second play, Half Century, could not be staged in 1995 because an official from NITA informally advised Theatre Works not to rock the boat. It was not an outright rejection. Censorship has gotten more subtle.
How queer was Half Century?
There was a gay couple there. There was a closet case there. Since I was really focused on the Marxist conspiracy event, I didn't feel the drive to write a very strong gay subtext to it.
Honestly, it feels like the shift was pretty organic. Writers had gotten the subject off their chests, and now they felt free to cross LGBT issues off the agenda. But not everyone wanted to move on.
Will's was yet another King Sen intervention. I was back in Singapore and working quite hard at an international law firm, but if I'm not mistaken, King Sen was the one who came to me and said,
Is there more to this story?
Wills and Secession is a sequel to Mergers and Accusations, continuing the story of Ellen, the lesbian lawyer, surviving the death of her lover and reconciling with her staunchly Christian sister.
it was very hard to write. Partly because of all the work I had, partly because it dealt with a topic that was more harmful than just love. Family and religion. I still remember King Sen and his phone calls. We were at an office at Tong Centre, the glass windows facing into the secretarial pool, and somewhere in the middle of the day, like 3 or 4 p.m, when he'd first woken up, he'd call and say,
Elle, what are you feeling? What is it about this scene?
and at the end, I'd be blubbering. I'd close the door, bring down the blinds, he'd do the L whispering and make me cry, and 3 pages would come out. So it was a troubled birth, that one. During the first read to internal theatre works persons, I remember one of the directors, who had actually been quite a fan of mergers, he actually walked out because he felt it was too offensive. Maybe it was the religion part. When we did mergers, there was never any worry we'd be shut down, but with wills, for some reason or other, there was always a worry that people would complain, that Christians would complain, and somehow it would be offensive and somehow it would be shut down.
Some people might call it a thorn in the flesh, or a burden, or a cross. I don't know. Or against God's will. I honestly don't know. But I do know love when I see it. Her love for my sister is as deep and strong and true as any lover I have ever known. How can I close my heart to a love like that?
95 also marks the beginning of another medium of queer Singaporean expression, film. Bugis Street, or
央街皇后
is directed by Yon Fan and written by Fruit Chan, both from Hong Kong, but it is filmed in Singapore, co-funded by Singaporean companies. And unlike most Bugis Street plays, it actually casts trans women as actors. The trans women themselves do not feel well represented.
I wanted to act in Bugis Street because I thought it would give me a chance to do something for my sisters. To tell people our side of the story. But the plot was insubstantial and our roles were shallow. Who knows how many heartaches we have suffered, how much ridicule we have put up with.
Maggie Lai is a former Bugis Street sex worker, striptease artist, and Gertai singer. She inspires not only filmmakers, but theatre makers.
I was very moved by the story of this father accepting his son becoming a doctor. And the thing is, this is the most traditional kind of father, the most uneducated Chinese Abing father, accepting his son's sex change unconditionally.
Appa is old and weak now. I would like to take care of him till the day he dies. The only regret in my life is leaving no grandchildren for Appa. If there is a rebirth, I wouldn't mind becoming a boar or an ox to repay him. After his death, I will be a bird, spreading my wings. I will fly high.
I remember meeting Royston Tan at the first staging because he couldn't get a ticket, and he kind of begged us and we asked, "Are you underage?"
Purple is staged in December 1995. It is the final piece in our retrospective.
A strange mirror to Singapore's first queer play, Russell Heng's Lest the Demons Get to Me.
And I know it's an artificial, arbitrary process, chopping up our history into periods.
But I find I like this frame, this 10-year window into our past.
Not very long.
not very long ago.
Yet so many works from this era have become classics.
This period in question is what I would term the first golden age of Singapore theatre.
It's hard to imagine that time. It's not like now when everyone's on social media. There were no blogs, no gay press. If there was an impact on individuals, they took it away in their silence. The most you could tell was their laughter, their sniffles at the end.
We did not know then that we had created a kind of revolution that would last in Singapore theatre. Future generations do not have to feel shame for desiring a normal life. They should not have to live in the shadows, but take the public arena as a right, not a privilege.
Maybe that's why this project is not easy. You're trying to piece us together. Each of us would have been one piece of a jigsaw, in contact with some pieces nearby. But there's no forum for the entire picture to come up.
I've been looking for friends, family, history. Maybe I found them in an age of transformation, where we were young and unfree, but anything was possible.
That was the Singapore I will always remember. There was so much joy, love, family, bananarama, and death in those short years. Thank you.
Of course, this production wouldn't have been possible without the production team. On lights, we have Zhifeng. On stage management, we have Melissa. On projection, we have Stingray. And of course, producing this show tonight, we have Streeter. Thank all of you for this. History of our queer Singaporean theatre. You've heard the voices of many of the playwrights featured. Some of them are here with us today. Thank you for lending your voices, lending your perspectives in the interviews with Yi-Sheng, and also giving us permission to restage this year. Without Yi-Sheng, who unfortunately is not in Singapore today to join us, but he was very much present. So a special shout out to Yi-Sheng for really working on this in 2019, and more importantly, publishing the script in a book. And as document, it leaves us to be able to revisit it not only this year, but also for future generations down the road. I'm going to borrow this device movement that Shoshan did. A symbol of us flipping a decade of work at 742, but also opening new pages to really create more Singaporean stories, nurture more playwrights' voices, and continue to document our collective histories. And on that note, I really appeal to all of you here to please be our advocate and be our champions of C42. If you can, and you've already donated, thank you, but if you're new to us and you've enjoyed tonight's production, Please think about supporting us for the long run. Our Champions of C42 donor program really aims to engage with donors on a more sustained basis to really help us work through the next chapter, but also the next decade of our work. On the very last note, we do have refreshments outside, so we can continue conversations. Please share with us your thoughts about the work, your thoughts about Singapore theatre, and I welcome you all up in the foyer to join us over drinks and food. And have a lovely Sunday afternoon.